The temple bell has stopped ringing, but the sound keeps coming out of the flowers. So we go from kiss to French kiss to, what was third base? Therapy. How many of you have been in therapy? This is for you. Building trust. I liked it. I liked it when he fucked me when I was half asleep, as if I were a pot of coffee he was used to putting on before anyone else in the house got up. Give him whatever the hell he wants, my mother said, with shiners in both eyes. Heirloom Limoges smashed on kitchen tile. The body of my mother being rolled into the morgue's gas jets is what I picture whenever he enters me, knowing I can't bring myself to visit her grave, not once. It would be the most disingenuous act, my therapist says, who knows her only through stories that I've told, most of them lies. I actually don't like it when he fucks me with skirt hiked past my hips and our hour isn't even up. His impatience, something I'd rather deal with off the clock. Otherwise, what am I paying him for? Surrogate father who fucks me better than my own father ever did. Who spares me the command to look into his face with blackened eyes as he comes, knowing I can't be trusted, not by anyone. I know my husband's body. I know my husband's body better than anyone else, especially the way he likes to be entered with my thumb, depending on the weather. In our 23 years together, I've made him come well over 1,000 times, most of it in our first year. He cups my balls and knows exactly how long it's been since I last came, teasing me about being more faithful to my own hand than to his. There's a man whose body I may never know, who knows his boyfriend's body better than anyone else. A man who's closer to me than anyone I know. The two of us having vowed to keep our clothes on. I must confess, I'm usually the first to rise, to shit the semen out and shower off before crawling back to bed, where my husband snores till noon, only to enter me again. This being more than anyone would want to know. Except for the man who wants my body more than my husband could possibly know. Is it worse to imagine what another's body will or will not do? I know a woman who thinks her husband is someone else every time she opens her legs, careful not to cry the wrong name, as my father did inside his new bride on their first night. My mother's ashes in an urn above their headboard. It was never about technique. There's no manual for any of this. So get behind the wheel and drive. There are places in our bodies no one has ever reached. Are there any Mormons in the house? Truly. If everything I said were a lie, if all I wanted was to pick your brain or suck you dry, and then make off with your baby destined to be a king, you too would walk away from me without a second thought, you said. Certain I'd agree that it was all a sham. Myself lost in thought the moment you hung up, remembering a friend I knew in college who made me take a vow inside a Mormon temple that we'd know each other for the rest of our lives. That whoever died first would be waiting to greet the other on the other side of the veil. The closest friend I'd ever had. Up until that moment, I decided to come out to him, Bob, whose father broke his mother's nose in 7 places, who dislocated her shoulder twice because he was in the mood, moving out of the house only when Bob and his 3 brothers cornered him with a shotgun in their garage. This story told to me through tears a decade after the fact. Bob, whose stepfather climbed into his bed, into each of his brothers' beds. Only this time no one said a word in fear of breaking up another marriage. Bob, who said to me, everything between you and me is a lie. Sharing the same room, showering at the gym, staying out or up until dawn, all of that means something different now. It didn't matter that I never touched him in a place that would have made him jump. Bob, who moved to Arizona, who didn't stay in touch, though I heard he was getting married, just couldn't bring himself to send an invitation. Everything wasn't a lie. Another decade passing by. Perhaps I am still a fool, waiting. Bob, whose son I've never met, answers the phone and tells his dad an old friend is on the line. Classical music. On the day my mother died, I unplugged the stereo at a time when record clubs still sent out their selections of the month, unless you said otherwise. The mail piled up on a table in the entry hall, an avalanche of bills and condolences I knew I didn't have to respond to. People would understand. My cat stopped sitting on the amplifier, found other sources of heat to get through a winter punctured by the clang and hiss of radiators built before my mother was born. Feeding the cat, changing the litter, done without music in the house. Months later, I took myself to a live concert. Something about Mozart, something I remember first having heard in the back of a '68 Rambler. The radio on. My mother and father trying to guess the name of the composer. The one game I knew my mother would win. It comes to that. One moment you're turning a dial lit up on the dash, and the next, you're not. The silence. She took the spare ribs out of the oven. There's the food. She took the spare ribs out of the oven and set them steaming on a plate before leaving her apartment. I didn't know how long to wait, tore into cold meat when I decided my mother wasn't coming back. No one knew about the gun she kept in her purse until the authorities called. A .38 caliber pistol with a pearl handle and a trigger even she could pull. Her car still waiting to be towed from a roadside ditch when they arrived on the scene. Yesterday morning, I was leaning over a kitchen sink, my husband upstairs sleeping. Between his snores muffled under a down comforter and a portable electric heater that kept our bedroom warm, I knew I could sob as loud as I wanted without disturbing him. At the sports arena between musical acts and clouds of dope, I texted my lover a wide-angle shot of the stage. The reception bars on my phone bouncing back and forth between high and low. A text I had to send several times before it went through, even though there was a chance his phone would be off or the text get lost for hours in the ether, even days. The silence is the agony. My therapist says, it's not your fault. No way for you to have known exactly where your mother was headed. Then why am I left weeping in my kitchen decades after? When I went upstairs and sat beside my husband, he could feel the mattress shift beneath our weight, even though I felt much lighter after watching translucent ropes of snot lowering down into the sink, arms around me when I asked if he was awake, knowing that he wasn't. How many romances get derailed when a text that has been sent fails to go through? How many mothers disappear through a kitchen door, never to return? The food on the table, the last meal they will ever serve. My lover texted back, "Where are you now?" Having no idea what I'd been going through when he texted again, "Wish I was there with you." Romance. Oh, and I'll just tell you, this poem I wrote for my beloved who is from Racine. I like his town. The house he grew up in is on Taylor. And when I was driving in on 20, on University, as soon as I saw the sign Taylor, I glanced to the right, and there was his house. In disrepair, I might add. Someone after this reading is going to have to explain to me a little bit about the neighborhoods here, because I have been driving around for the last 2 days, and I'm really curious about, what the neighborhoods are like, the dynamics. It seems really varied here. Am I right? Yes. Mm-hmm. Okay. And I know I can't find that info in a wiki article. So I hope some of you will come up to me and say, "Hey, I will answer your questions." Romance. We stand in line for a pack of cigs. My man who lets me drag off his rather than giving me my own. Some say he's never slept with another man. Driving home, my hand rests on his when he's done shifting. As we listen to someone croon, "It was the first time, and you knew you would." And his SUV turns into a boat of flowers, nosing into waves of wheat just off the interstate. $45 a night motel rooms inviting us to stop pretending there isn't a whole lot more going on. All I know is I miss him all the time when we're not bathed in dashboard light. Everything I could want right there. A man I know I could leave my husband for. The ring on my finger, a shackle, a trifle. No road long enough for where we're headed. That was graceful. Because it means I'm almost done. So a week from tomorrow is Father's Day. How many of you in the room are fathers? A little round of applause. I was with my father last month. I've been going around reading, and I went back to the Bay Area, and he's going to be 87 this summer. And so this poem is for him. And I haven't given him this book yet. What I really want to do is tear out this last page and give that to him. And this poem is called The Remains, Wuxi, China. Walking out of the new cemetery, my father takes my hand, having just reinterred the remains of his own father and his father's 2 wives. His mother dead from TB by the time he was 10. He takes my hand and says, "Now I can die in peace, even if we didn't get the actual bones." Village thugs hired by my uncle made sure the burial mounds behind the house my father grew up in would not feel a single shovel blade go in as they stood there sentinel with arms crossed. My uncle's wife had a dream that out of the grave's opened gash, demons rushed, ancestral ghosts not wanting to be disturbed. In less than a decade, bulldozers will come to take the Lu village down. My grandfather's ashes, my grandmother's bones, my own father walking away with 2 fistfuls of dirt and saying, "This will have to do." So many others have died who've left nothing behind. I'll never come back to this place again. My father kisses my hand, I who've flown across 12 time zones to be here at his side in a borrowed van. Me looking out the window at a countryside once overrun with Japs marching west along the railroad tracks. My father and his siblings hiding in an outhouse. A dead horse found in the schoolyard after the soldiers had gone. "Your hands are so soft," I say to my father. "So are yours," he says. "Remember when it was we last held hands?" I must have been a kid, I say, maybe 8 or 10. "You were 6, my father says. "And I'm still your son," I say, leaning into his shoulder, our hands the same size. And I'll always be your father, my father says, before I have the chance to say another word, my 80-year-old father nodding off into sleep.
Speeches.